the first speaker, who represents Germany, is Henrik Broder, and Henrik is a journalist, TV personality, and author as well. And his latest book is called The Last Days of Europe. And I think that's what you're going to talk about today. Say Goodbye to Europe, a very optimistic title. The floor is yours, Henrik.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I hope you don't mind my casual outfit. I just try to improve the image of Germany. And mostly I fail. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really pleased being here. Copenhagen is one of my favorite towns in Europe, number 2, just after Amsterdam. And the spirit that prevails in Copenhagen is something that I always enjoy coming to Copenhagen, especially when coming from Berlin, which is a great city, but full of stress and daily fighting. We came today together to mourn the passing of our peninsula called Europe, located at the western edge of Asia, home to more than 500 million people and the homeland of French Revolution, German philosophy, Scottish Enlightenment, Italian pasta, and Danish design. Europe did not perish overnight, nor was it hijacked by gangsters or buried by an earthquake or washed away by a tsunami. It is still on the map. You can see it, you can touch it, but only physically. Mentally, culturally, and in terms of self-esteem, Europe has committed suicide. It was a slow and painful death, organized and orchestrated by those who have devoted their lives to promoting peace, love, tolerance, and multiculturalism. In spite of being a fortress of education, culture, and science, Europe has surrendered to a force that is deeply entrenched in tribal traditions, dominated by ideas which are as outdated as the open fire in a cave. Since some religious nuts imposed a fatwa on Salman Rushdie in 1989, we, the brave ones, are busy protecting and defending freedoms which are totally natural and should be taken for granted. 400 years after Galileo Galilei, 200 years after Voltaire, 150 years after Henry David Thoreau, and only 50 years after the events of Prague Spring. 10 years ago, after Jyllands-Posten, as mentioned, published its Mohammed cartoons, we had to witness an epidemic of cowardice and surrender, disguised as respect for religious feelings. I will not go into details. You remember what happened in Denmark, France, Great Britain, Sweden, and other countries of the so-called free world. But I do remember countless discussions with my leftist and liberal friends in Germany who were ready to sacrifice their lives fighting for women's rights, gay rights, animal rights, and the right to receive alimony by the welfare system of the state. But when it came to making fun of Muslims, they became culturally highly sensitive. I still hear them saying, freedom of expression is most important. It's a holy thing. But it has to be used responsibly. Responsibility was the catchword of the day. Not everything that can be done or said should be done or said. Self-restraint is necessary, to maintain social peace in the society. We had the same discussions earlier, after the murder of Theo van Gogh in Holland, and recently after the massacre at Charlie Hebdo's in Paris. Restrain yourself was the bigoted message directed not at the killers and their friends, but at the artists, writers and editors who came out in support of Kurt Westergaard, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Fleming Rose and other Fundamentalisten der Aufklärung, fundamentalists of the Enlightenment, as one staff member of the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung put it. And I was really very proud to be in the crowd of the fundamentalists of the Enlightenment. The message, do not provoke the crazies, they might get angry, was well received. Especially in Tehran, Riyadh, Kabul, Aden, and in the hinterland of Baghdad and Aleppo. I also remember the chieftain of the Protestant Church in Germany, Bishop Käßmann, saying it would be better to pray together with the Taliban than to bomb them. Unfortunately, the Taliban did not pick up on this offer, and Bishop Käßmann had to resign after she was caught driving under the impact of alcohol and not stopping at a red light. Only 3 weeks ago, basically yesterday, our Chancellor Angela Merkel gave a lecture at the University of Bern, Switzerland, where she received an honorary PhD. In the following question and answer session, Mrs. Merkel was asked what she intends to do to protect Germany from Islamization. A very simple topic question that has to be asked every day. What she intends to do to protect Germany from Islamization. Mrs. Merkel seemed to be stunned for a second. Then she answered the question by saying, I condense her words, if someone is afraid of Islamization, he or she should go more often to the church or read the Holy Scriptures. This neglect of an existing problem, resulting in a silly statement, was already mind-boggling. But even more shameful was the public response. Mrs. Merkel was praised for her courage and wisdom. This, dear friends, is in a nutshell the state of affairs in today's Germany. Appeasement, preemptive surrender, and an attitude toward the rest of Europe which the Hungarian Prime Minister, Mr. Orban, quite rightly described as moral imperialism, moralischer Imperialismus. Where do we go from here? Some of you may think there is still some hope behind the horizon, that things have to get worse before they can get better. I don't think so. You cannot turn the clock back. If you keep an eye on recent events in Germany, you know that Germany is ready to receive 1 million refugees this year, almost all of them Muslims, and most of them young males not used to restrain themselves. And slowly it dawns upon my fellow Germans that there is a problem even Germany cannot cope with. 1 million refugees this year, maybe another million next year. Where do we house them? How do we feed them? Where do we find the teachers to educate their children? There is only one thing we know for sure. The unrestricted influx of refugees with no experience with democracy, equal rights, women's rights, and the rule of law will change Germany beyond recognition. And not only Germany, Europe will not survive this test of endurance. The technocrats and bureaucrats of the EU, phony performance on the Brussels theatre stage like Martin Schulz and Jean-Claude Juncker, know how to deceive the public by suggesting that we need more Europe, more integration, more central institutions in Brussels. Would you trust a physician who prescribes you more of the medicine that knocked you off your feet? Why should we trust politicians who are promising to solve problems they have brought upon us? Europe, they claim, is a union of values, and do not forget, only 3 years ago, the European Union was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize. Already then, it was a bad joke. In retrospect, it is the proof how arrogance and hubris damage the perception of reality. If peace is more than the absence of war, there was never less peace in Europe since the end of World War II. Europe is deeply divided. The North against the South, the West against the East, the rich against the poor. It is a house of cards falling apart. But yet, the politicians invoke the spirit of Europe, the European idea, like a spiritual healer, our masters of fraud and deception. The whole situation reminds me of the last days of the Soviet Union. The worse things got in the Soviet Empire, the more crisis managers showed up, telling us that this is only a temporary crisis, that in the end there will be a solution to every problem, provided we stay put and act in concert. And this is exactly the tune played today. Our beloved Chancellor, Mrs. Merkel, keeps telling us, wo ein Wille ist, da ist auch ein Weg. Where there is a will, there is also a way. The German version of Barack Obama's "Yes, we can." But no, we can't. We simply can't. We cannot cope with millions of migrants coming from totally different cultures, even if we are willing to give up some of our principles in order to exercise what is called today Willkommenskultur, the culture of welcoming. One of the many German euphemisms designed to blur the difference between facts and fiction. I really do not want to be so negative on this beautiful day. I do not want to spoil your mood. However, to turn a blind eye was never a good idea. The only thing we can do is to protocol current events, to call a spade, and avoid appeasement in the spirit of Winston Churchill, who once said, "An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him last." Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's Q's and A's. People can ask questions.
Yes.
You can answer it from your seat.
Okay.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you for spoiling our mood. Now we have 10 minutes for Q's and A's, questions and comments for Henrik. Anybody who wants to say something, to ask something? Now is the chance. Jan?
Yes, my name is Jan Fullesson.
Just wait a minute for the microphone.
Yes, very glad to have a German representative here. I think some 5 years ago, Angela Merkel said it was the end of multiculturalism. She and David Cameron said it was not possible to have a multicultural society in Europe with all the influx of immigrants and non-European origins. And now she's changed her mind. Why?
Yes, it's a good question. I have no answer. No, I'm not sure. Seriously. All Germany, the friends and the foes of Angela Merkel asking the same question, what happened to Angela? She was maybe not our favorite politician, but at least she was deeply grounded. You know, she was standing with both feet on the ground. Obviously now she has elevated herself. And I really think he resembles the captain of the Bounty, Captain Bligh, who was so much impressed with himself that he started to act like a god, neglecting all rules of behavior and all rules of engagement. This is the central question, and you know there are hundreds of comments in the German press, in the radio, and the German media, and no one can find an explanation for this. And it happened really overnight, when she broke all rules and all laws, opening the gates of Germany and letting thousands and thousands of people come to Germany. You must imagine the EU is negotiating about the gerechte Verteilung, the just distribution of 120,000 refugees from camps in Jordan, Turkey and other states. Only in the first 3 weeks of September, 135 migrants came to Bavaria, and they were distributed within Germany, with by now already horrible consequences. Fights in the camps, and it's almost impossible to house all of them, and the winter is coming, and probably some of them, or most of them, will have to stay in winter in tents, which is not a pleasant situation. This is a big, you know, enigma for us. What made Mrs. Merkel change her mind? We do not know. It's not satisfying, I know.
Yes?
Hey, so I'd like to quote something and get your observations on it. I saw an interview with a Swedish journalist, and he said that in Sweden, assimilation was considered a Nazi German, and that immigrants are not supposed to assimilate, and Swedes are supposed to learn from immigrants. Do you see that this is in fact what is going on in Europe in general?
Yes. Yes, when we speak about integration today in Germany, so this term has two meanings. Integrating the native population and integrating the refugees. And this is absolutely bizarre. How do you integrate 81 or 82 million Germans into Germany? I think this is a good joke, you know, there's something for a stand-up comedian, but this is an opinion review being uttered publicly by serious politicians. And this is going to be the general formula. We have to integrate and they have to integrate too. It's like saying, you know, to a woman and to a rapist that both of them have to change their attitudes.
Yes?
Hello. Hi, my name is Rafi Baba from Kurdish Generation of Sweden. I have just one question. I've offered you why suddenly Turkey opened the gates or the frontiers to all these refugees to come into other countries, to Europe?
I don't know. I seriously don't know. I don't understand Turkish policy at all. That is one of the mysteries in the mind of Mr. Erdogan. No idea. So I am as curious as you are.
Okay. Keep.
Question: how do you think this integration will happen? Wow. How will Europe disintegrate, like the Balkans, like Lebanon? Will it happen financially first, or socially?
Yeah. Comparing it with the Balkan or with Lebanon means already a very positive option. No, I'm in a very negative mood, you know. Basically, I'm not a negative person. I'm very pessimistic. I believe in progress. And if someone tells me things used to be much better 50 years ago, so I just can tell him, go to a doctor and tell him he should treat you as he was treating his patients 50 years ago. And then we will forget all the nostalgia. But in this case, I'm very, very pessimistic. Because strange enough, you know, first of all, I'm very much in favor of intervening. You know, already 4 or 5 years ago, I thought, and I said it publicly, we should intervene in Syria. But at that time, other politicians were very afraid of a, I don't know how to say it, Flächenfeuer, you know, spreading the violence all over. Now we have it at our doorstep. So you cannot do things today you forgot to do yesterday. This is one thing. The other thing is that Europe, of course, disintegrate because millions of people on the way to Europe who do not share the basic ideas of social life in Europe. And we have enough problems in Germany with people who are illiterate, with the so-called Lumpenproletariat, and with people who have no idea about political and social culture in Germany. And we are adding to this amount of people, another big number of people who think totally differently in terms of family, of equal rights, of politics. I found a story 2 or 3 days ago in a paper, I think it was Debate, where a Syrian family, mother, father, 5 children, were moved around from one camp to another, and then finally they ended up in Berlin, and the mother of the family said, "We love Queen Angela, but Germany is not good to us." So this is the situation of people coming from authoritarian regimes. We have to love, the monarch or the patriarch, the guy heading the state, because what you do and what you receive does not depend on your merits or your work. It depends on how close you are to the head of the states. And this attitude is prevailing with our new migrants. And this will change the face and the fabric of European society too.
One last question in this session.
My name is Kjøk Eklund. I come from Norway, representing only myself and my expenses. And anyway, when listening to Henrik Broder, I remembered reading Arthur Koestler in the 1950s, and Koestler was, among other things, a good analyzer of European history. You really recommended that we record for posterity of the sad state of affairs of today so that we can remember them. Koestler summed up the history of Europe as a lot of up and down situations, and came to the somewhat optimistic conclusion that irrespective of the sad state of Europe, Europe had always managed to recover. Do you see anything we could do, provided the worst predictions materialize? What can we do then to get Europe to rise again? I would like to have some advice to give to my 9 grandchildren. Thank you.
Yes. I love Arthur Koestler as much as you love him, but that does not mean that he was right in what he predicted 50 years ago. And coming from Germany, with its unbelievable history of Germany, I know that predicting the future is a very difficult job. Predicting the past is much easier. Now, I can't tell you what we can do. I am not good in giving advice. I can only see, that Europe is on the wrong track. And I ask myself, why? And this is a question now that should be posed not to politicians, but maybe to psychoanalysts. And I think Europe is obsessed with a desire to get guilt, to get rid of some kind of guilt. This may be a very different feeling in France. They lost their colonies after World War II, and it's different in Germany, who still are, expecting some punishment for the bad years between 33 and 45, because they know they were never really punished. So the motives and the reasons are different. But there is one prevailing feeling. We are the bad ones because we live in luxury, in affluent societies, and it's a common saying in Germany that we are living at the expenses of others. So now we get the chance to share everything we have with the poor ones, and at the very end, the poor ones will not have more, but we will have much less.
Thank you.
Sorry for being so pessimistic.
Thank you, Henrik.